Good morning, everyone. Good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are in the world. Thank you for tuning in to Jigs and Puzzles show with myself, Ivan Tamokov. Today, I am joined by two great people that I've recently met that are changing the world and are doing some amazing, amazing things. First of all, if this is your first time tuning in, make sure you hit the notification so that way you're notified the next time I'm on, so you can tune in to the show. And my big surprise today is we are about to also go live on YouTube and Twitter simultaneously. Veronica and Aaron, how are you guys? Good morning.
Good morning.
Morning.
Doing well.
Doing awesome.
Awesome. Thank you so much for coming to join me this morning. I know it's kind of early where you guys are at because you're Pacific time, right? So you're 2 hours behind. I'm Central time, so it's 8:30 a.m. Have you guys had enough caffeine yet? Are you ready to go?
Oh, we're revved up and ready to go.
We're up early, so it's fine.
Awesome. Well, I stumbled. I don't even know how we got connected on Facebook. It's just amazing because Facebook is such a small world in reality and how intertwined everyone's community is. So with that being said, let's start off with, tell the viewers who you are, what's your story? I mean, how did you guys get to, first of all, how did you meet each other? Let's just start there. How did you guys meet each other? And let's talk a little bit about your story and how did you guys get into what you're doing right now?
Well, it'll all tie in together. I started my career, I was a chiropractor. I'm still a chiropractor. I don't practice anymore. But when I first started, I was working at a hospital, and then for about 2.5 years when I first started my career. And then I moved up to San Diego area and started my own practice. And just through mutual friends, I was renting a space in a small office to begin with, just like starting out my business. You start small and we expand. And it just so happened the people that I was sharing the office with, they were doing some other technology in there as well. And, they brought Veronica on because she had learned how to use the technology. And we just met that way. And I think as we met and we learned, what each other can do and our talents and abilities, it was, we just hit it off after about a few months. And it's been going on 6 years now that we've been together. We're engaged right now and, plan to be married. Our goal is this year sometime.
Congratulations. Hey, I didn't know this. How did I not know this? Congratulations. That's awesome.
Thank you.
Thank you.
That's awesome. All right, go on. I'm sorry.
So it's just funny how everything met, and that's how we met.
Yeah. And then working together, when he was working with patients, I would sit in taking notes and I would start to feel pain in my body that wasn't there before. So I knew it wasn't mine. And I would have him check the patient, like check this area and see if there's anything there. And almost all the time it would show up. And I would also feel their emotions. So when he was doing emotional work, I would start crying before they even knew what was happening. It was like I could feel their vibration and way before it registered to their brain.
Mm-hmm. So with that being said, as a background is, I learned during my career and also my own challenges how much the emotional effects of life, all the fears, the worries, the frustrations, the guilt, the griefs, how they, if we don't find an outlet to release those, they can manifest in our body in a physical form and can create, I've seen it in disease and physical pain with people. And so I specialized more in helping people release a lot of the emotional energy that they hold on to, even from such a young, early age that still carries with them today, that not only affects them in their health, but affects them in their business and their finances. It's where we feel stuck in our life. We can't move forward. It's because we have these emotional charges that show up that can sabotage our success. And when I realized that Veronica can feel people's energy with her training and her background. And so eventually we tied and put our work together.
No, I'm a trained Reiki Master, and that's using universal energy to help heal people. So we combine the emotional with the spiritual energy healing together. So we're able to work with people over the phone, over like a meeting like this.
Right.
And we'll get the same results because we're all energy. I think you're frozen.
I'm frozen. I have no idea if we're still live.
Are you still there?
We're still here.
Okay. I think that's the beauty about Be Live, right? Like we were just talking about a few minutes ago, is getting a little bit of a scattery there, right? So yeah. I was just going to mention, as you were sharing that, and I'm totally going to butcher the title that you mentioned. You are a trained, say that again, Veronica, you're a trained
Reiki Master.
Okay. We're going to call you a master for the duration of the session, okay? You're a master at emotions and spiritual feelings, which, that is probably, I think, one of the most intriguing things, right? Is just the ability to have that. Let me ask you this. What does that feel like? Like, because you guys both get to work with people, whether it's, just through a video session or over the phone or in person. What does that feel like?
When it can get overwhelming, especially when being in big crowds of people, because everyone there is, emotional, going through their own thing. And it could be like all this emotion just like swirling around, and it could be overwhelming where I need to step out for a little bit to ground myself, because if I don't stay grounded, all that emotion and all that energy can affect me. But I've learned to separate what's mine and what's other people's. Because in the past, when I was younger, I always thought it was me. So I was depressed and I didn't know why I was feeling what I was feeling. And it just didn't make sense to me. But later on, when I started doing the emotional clearing, the energy work, then I was able to separate the two. And it makes me feel so much better now, where I'm not being drained by everyone else's stuff.
Very interesting. So, the challenge with that is just kind of to find that self-control, right? I mean, I can only imagine what that feels like you were saying, and the reason I asked this question is because it got me wondering, I wonder what that feels like in crowds. I mean, it must feel like, a bombard of like different feelings and emotions, and like, so controlling that must be really challenging, right? And it probably took some time to kind of figure out, how to smoothen that out to where it wasn't overwhelming. Because I'm sure in the beginning it was like, what's going on? Like you were saying, right? It's like, it was just this overwhelming feeling that you weren't sure how to control it. And by the way, that's an amazing gift to have. Amazing. And it's kind of like, I bet the most times you kind of feel like when you're working with different individuals that you get to see the side of them that they might consider as a weakness or as a vulnerability, right? And I think a lot of people, this is something actually that really got me thinking after the last time we spoke, is vulnerability, being vulnerable. And I think most people kind of see it as a vulnerability, right? Or the vulnerability being as a disadvantage. So, you guys work with different people, you guys got together, you're now engaged, very, very happy for you guys. So, let's talk a little bit about your work. So what are some of the people that you work with, and what kind of a value, or what are some of the different situations that you've encountered in the past?
What we really like working with, and what just seems to gravitate towards us, is those people that are entrepreneurs, CEOs, business professionals, because they really want to grow in their business, in their career, in their life, and they want to expand. Because if we're not expanding, then life is boring. And what we found is that as they're growing towards their dream and what they want to earn more money, they want to help more people, is they get to the point where they feel stuck. And they don't know why. It just seems like when the same pattern runs over and over again, and they can't get past a certain point. It's like they hit a wall. And when they come to us, and we figure out what that wall is. Why is it there, and why can't you break through that? And again, it's that emotional energy, maybe something that they're still holding on to. We talked about earlier was holding on to like a bag of rocks. It's the weight and the baggage that we carry that it makes us heavy. And we release that and remove that, so that way they can not just jump or go around the wall. We help them bust through that wall in a short amount of time. And so we really love working with the entrepreneurs, because as an entrepreneur, it takes a lot of risk. It takes a lot of guts, because you're being challenged by all of your insecurities, because you're facing rejection, you're facing judgment from people, and criticism and judgment are like one of the biggest fears that people have, putting themselves out there. And you have to market yourself. You have to be out there. And if you let your fears get in the way, then it holds people back from actually accomplishing their dreams and doing what they truly love. And we see a lot of people that stay stagnant and discontent, and they wish they can do what other people are doing, because these emotions get in the way. So that's truly love to help.
Yeah. Which, and the reason I asked this question is that I think a lot of people don't realize how the emotional aspect, how feelings and emotions have such an intricate part, well, in everything that we do as human beings. And something that I really talk about on the show is, about life and family and business and how to really find that counterbalance, right? Because a lot of people, I think, and I know you mentioned this previously when we spoke, is that sometimes, for instance, you guys work with C-level folks that, might feel like they're very successful in life. They have family, they're making six figures in there. So everything's going well, but inside they feel empty. And you were also describing, the entrepreneur, which something that I think in entrepreneurship, I'm glad actually that you brought this up and kind of going polar opposite here for a second. A lot of entrepreneurs struggle with depression. I didn't know this, is that towards the end of every year, especially around the holidays, it is very, very common where depression. I think a lot of the year, it's around the holidays, it's the most celebratory, and it really makes you more subconscious about what's going on in your life, right? Mm-hmm. So what are some of the, if you were to look back, so you guys have been doing this for about 6 years now, right? Roughly, if I remember.
I've been doing the emotional healing for about going on almost 10 years now. You've been doing Reiki since?
I've been doing Reiki since 2011, and I started working on my emotional stuff since 2004. So it's been a long time.
But doing it as a team together has probably been the last few years. So, yeah. But we've been doing the work. We just teamed it up together.
Very cool. Very cool. So here's an interesting question that I want to ask you is, so when you're working with clients, how do you create a delineation between the types of feelings and emotions that you experience for yourself and then the ones that you work through with entrepreneurs and other individuals?
Well, prior to working with the client, I have to, center myself. I have to ground myself and just clear my mind of anything that's going on. But Aaron and I are constantly working on each other to make sure that there's nothing there that can interrupt that connection. So it's really clearing my mind and staying in a more positive mindset. Otherwise, I don't feel like I would be, helping the person. So I have to always stay positive and just clear my mind and stay grounded, because then if I allow my own emotions to get in the way, it could be something that they're saying that can trigger me. So I'm always working on myself, making sure that, that I'm staying connected, because I can definitely feel, prior to the session, I know where I'm at emotionally. And then so when we work with them, I can feel where they're at. So it's knowing that, kind of where they're at and just feeling them.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. That's really interesting. The reason I wanted to ask that question is because, again, like earlier on, you were talking about when you discovered that you had this gift, it was challenging to control it, right? It was very overwhelming in the beginning. I can only imagine what the feeling was like. So another question I want to ask you is why should people consider the emotional and spiritual healing from what you guys have to offer? What are some specific reasons that specific scenarios maybe or life, occurrences that you guys have encountered with it? What suggestions would you give to someone that, they have all this tension inside, which, by the way, I'm a huge advocate for what you guys do. I couldn't believe the amazing stuff that you did. I mean, it's like, so why should people consider releasing that tension? Like, what are some reasons that they should consider doing that? How could that benefit them?
I'll give an example. Just somebody that we worked with recently that we reached out. In fact, we were doing a live show and somebody connected with us. And this person who is an entrepreneur, she runs her own business. It's a network marketing business. And she's just starting out and wanted to get things out there. But for the last year, she had a child and was going through a postpartum depression, what she told us. And, there's been financial challenges in the home. The husband has been a little bit depressed as well, and that's affecting her. So all this energy around her environment, puts her in a very negative mindset and a very, poor mood, which doesn't give her the motivation to go out there and give it her all, to actually start running her business. In fact, she mentioned to us that she wasn't really motivated to start anything or do anything. And so everything was just being stagnant. And when we worked with her, we realized that it's because of, old patterns that happened in the past that were being re-triggered in the present time. She just wasn't consciously aware of that. And as we helped her to release the emotion and realize that this is just your mind showing you there's an area of your life that hasn't been healed yet, and it's reoccurring again. And unless you're consciously paying attention to it, it's like the universe is telling you, you need to heal this. And if you don't heal it, we're going to keep showing it to you over and over again until you pay attention and wake up. So we helped her to finally release what she was holding on to for so long. And there was tears and some emotion and a lot of energy. And, afterwards, she was feeling so much lighter. She says she felt freer and more motivated and happy again. She said, I haven't felt this happy in like a very long time. And fast forward, we're on Facebook and we're seeing her, doing live videos. She's posting. She's actually doing her business. We reached out to her last night asking how things were feeling. She said, I'm doing great. And, she's actually increased her business within the last week or two after we worked on her. So when people are feeling stuck, like they're not moving forward or progressing, when they're getting triggered a lot just by the people around them, and we're talking about business, but this can be in relationships, it can be in family, etc. It's when our emotions get in the way of being who we truly are. And that's what we help people to release, so that way they can be the best that they can be.
Also for her, it was little simple things like getting the laundry done. Like she wasn't even, she didn't have the energy or motivation to even do something like that. And it's not all business. It ties into everything. So the home life, everything, relationships, business. So it can affect everything.
Yeah. Well, I'm glad you guys, the reason I asked you this question is I wanted you to really expand upon it, to give people kind of an insight as to why, because here's the thing is that I think we live in a world where we're so judged that people are afraid of vulnerability. They're afraid to release the tension that they have. And, this is coming from someone that's an advocate of what you guys do. And that's why I'm sharing this, is because I think that we are all human and we go through experiences in life. Some of us have darker pasts. I've chatted with some individuals, here recently that have had really, really dark pasts, and just reflecting on that, it's kind of like you shouldn't be holding on to that. You shouldn't be carrying that bag of rocks, right? It's not your responsibility. And I feel like, especially a lot of entrepreneurs, a lot of people that are pursuing their dreams, their goals, people that are putting everything on the line, or maybe even working professionals that don't have that sense of fulfillment, that they shouldn't feel like they have the responsibility to carry this burden around, because it really is. I mean, what's really surprising is that, and just going through this experience recently with you guys, was that realizing that, oh my God, I mean, there's such thing of like actually being able to be truly happy and feel like you can be successful. And I think I had an out of body experience, honestly. Like it was just like, it was amazing to.
We lost you, Ivan.
Cutting out a little bit. We lost you. Let us know if you still hear us.
There you are. You're cutting.
Are you still there?
Yeah, we're here. We lost you for a little bit.
On our end.
The last thing we heard was that you had an out of body experience.
Oh, okay.
I think I'm out of body right now.
Yeah, I'm out of body right now. Well, Be Live is out of body, I think, right now is what it is. Honestly, and you gotta love technology, right? The out of body experiences. The reason I was comparing that to that is because I think people are afraid of new things. I think they're afraid of releasing that tension. And what you guys do, look, I wasn't even persuaded, honestly, because like I've run into, when you're a kid and like you go to the circus and like you run across like these different people and magicians and all that, they tell you about fortune tellers. And I'm like, okay, is Aaron and Veronica like fortune tellers? Like, are they going to tell me like what's going on with my future? And then like when we sat down and actually went through this exercise, which, by the way, thank you for being so adamant in doing this with me, because it was a proof of concept, honestly. And then I was like, oh my God, this is like amazing. This is like, I haven't felt like this, and I don't know how long, and the reason I'm sharing this is just to advocate for what you guys do and why I think that I know a lot of people personally, not just entrepreneurs, but friends, also colleagues as well, that I feel like have so much tension inside them that they've sort of like built this bubble and a blanket around them that is called their shield, really. Like they have the shield constantly on as if the world is going to hurt them, you know? Yeah. And after kind of going through this exercise with you guys, oh my God, I mean, that was a huge vulnerability. You know, honestly, I'm about to say that Ivan as an individual, I can't remember the last time Ivan has released such emotion and tension. And I'm so glad I did that. I'm so glad I did that, because I think something that personally I was afraid of is the vulnerability aspect and how I would be judged by that. And, you know, I even commented on one of you guys' recent sessions and said, you know what, grown men do cry. You know, grown men do cry, and that's okay. You know, a prime example that I want to share with you guys is, so several years ago, my grandfather passed away. You know, being an Eastern European, I didn't have the chance to say goodbye. You know, he lives across the pond. And, you know, when this experience occurred, that was the first time in my entire life that I had seen my father get emotional, you know, actually cry. And I feel like as a father, you know, as a role model that he has been for myself and my sister the entire life, I felt like he always felt like he had the necessity, the duty to hold a shield up, as if like that he will be judged. And I think that was one of the first occurrences that really made me think that, you know what, we're all human. Mm-hmm. You know, we all go through experiences. We all go through challenges. And sometimes it's really, really beneficial to have people like you guys who are able to extract that tension and sort of set it free to where it's not encapsulated within yourself, you know. And you know, I'm going to be honest with you, is this, you know, some occurrences even dating back to, you know, when me and my wife were going through trying to conceive, you know, our first son, you know, our firstborn, I should say, you know, there were some challenges where we felt very vulnerable. And there were times where we felt like, you know, are we going to be judged? And the reality of things is, you know, we realized that stop worrying about what people think. You know, stop worrying about how you think people might judge you, because that is the tension that you're building up. That is the bag of rocks that you're filling, that you're continuously carrying around. And I think people just don't understand the merit that has on life, the merit that has on your life, on your relationship, on your friendships, on your finances, on your business. I mean, it's a huge burden. So let's talk a little bit about entrepreneurs, because something that I talk about in the show a lot of is lifestyle. So life, family, business, you know, and kind of pushing the message of, you know, so how do you put all the pieces to the puzzle together, right? Life, family, business. So what advice would you guys give to entrepreneurs that, you know, have a lot of tension, a lot of emotion, maybe a dark past? Like, what will be, you know, a good insight, or what will be a good suggestion, you know, to come to you, or, you know, to explore, to kind of release that tension?
Yeah, well, a lot of people don't know where to go. And Ivan, are you still there? Because you're frozen.
Hello?
Oh, there you are.
Okay.
Yeah. All right. So a lot of people don't know how to.
Are you still there?
Yeah, we're here.
We're here.
People don't know where to go, who to turn to for to work on this type of thing.
Okay, I think we are having some technical difficulties. I don't know if Be Live is still running. If you guys are still out there, I apologize.
No,
looks like we froze for a second. Aaron and Veronica, are you guys there?
We're here.
No, we cut out.
We did?
We cut out something.
Okay, we might have gotten frozen. So hopefully we can get back here in just a second. So for those of you that are just tuning in, or this is your first time watching the show airs every Friday at 10:30 a.m. Central Standard Time, 11:30 a.m. Eastern Standard Time, and 8:30 a.m. Pacific Standard Time. Are you guys back, Aaron?
We're here.
Veronica, are you there?
We're here.
We're here. Can you hear us?
Awesome.
We're here. Can you hear us?
Yes, I can hear you. You like disappeared mysteriously there. It made me wonder, like, you guys are probably going like, this guy's like yapping. We'll just take a nap here for a minute and come back here in a couple of minutes, right? Glad to have you back. You know, this is technology, right?
We went out of body for a minute.
Oh, okay.
we had to recharge, and now we're back in live, ready to go. That's a great point. When this happens, and I mentioned this on a show, we were doing a great interview with Todd Special, and our audio went out during the thing, and when we came back, I let people know that challenges happen, and there's a lot of people that get frustrated, or when something goes wrong, it's that perfectionistic component that gets in, and they get upset when things don't go right, or maybe there's something in your life you want it to go this way, but it never happens exactly how you want, because it's not your plan, it's God's plan. And then things always work out, but it's how you pick yourself up when those mistakes and challenges happen. And we just get right back and do it again. But there's a lot of people that will beat themselves up and put themselves down and think that they're unworthy or they're not good enough because of, maybe they said something wrong, or maybe they worry about they're going to say something wrong, especially doing something live like this. But if you can just kind of brush it off and laugh at yourself a little bit and be vulnerable, hey, mistakes happen, and be willing to make mistakes, because that's where our growth is. So it's a good, it was a good segue to bring up a good point.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, you just made a really interesting point too, is just that, first of all, one of the things that I remember as we did kind of through the exercise is to acknowledge that everyone is worthy. Mm-hmm. Everyone is worthy. And I think people, like you said, is that I think people create this misconception in their minds that they're unworthy and that they need to carry these burdens around as if, they have the responsibility, of doing that. And that's not the case at all. I even to going through this exercise with you guys, it really kind of made me realize that, vulnerability is okay. We are human. We are just human beings, and we make mistakes. We go through life and experiences, and, having people like you guys being able to extract that, whether you're an entrepreneur, a business owner, or someone that's just struggling with emotional, or, you had a bad childhood, or whatever the case it might have been, I think this is very beneficial because it creates a release. Mm-hmm. And a lot of people I think are afraid of that. I know, especially in my early years of entrepreneurship, running across different people that you could totally tell that they had a shield in front of them because they were afraid that society would hurt them. Mm-hmm. And I think that that's probably one of the biggest mistakes that people make is that, they feel like, I got to have the shield. And if I have the shield, that nobody can hurt me. Right. But the reality of things is people will hurt you, unintentionally. That's just life. That's just, the human race. And it's important to recognize that you need to figure out how to pick yourself up and move forward, and I was just completely blown away. Like I said, just having, again, the out-of-body experience of what that really feels like. I mean, I even share this with you guys. No joke. I had no idea that, like, my body temperature levels were, like, going to shift. It was ridiculous. Yeah. Like, I had never, ever had this kind of a feeling. And it's just amazing to experience that, to be able to go through that. So let's talk a little about, also and what you're currently doing. What are some things that you guys are focusing on at the moment? Is there anything specific that you guys are working on and trying to expand your brand and what you guys are doing, spread the message and the value and reach other people? Is there anything specific that you guys are focusing on?
Yeah, right now, Aaron and I are working on a program that's a membership program that people can, pay once a month, and it'll teach them mindset principles. So in order to manifest what you want in life, you have to change your mindset. Otherwise, if you're constantly, getting the same thing over and over, or you're getting things that you don't want, it's a mindset issue because maybe you feel unworthy. Maybe you feel like you don't deserve the nice things that, that you dream of. So as people grow up and they're kids, they get bullied, or the parents are very strict and they don't let them do certain things because the parents are afraid of judgment. So it's something that's passed down generation to generation. And a lot of times it's fear-based because as for me growing up, there was a lot of fear, and I was afraid to speak out. I was afraid to talk. I was really shy, and I felt like I missed out on a lot of things, opportunity wise, because I was so quiet to raise my hand to volunteer for something that seemed fun. So there's a lot of these emotional things that really affect everyone. And that's what we're here to teach, that it's okay, you know, for you to speak out, because everybody, no matter where you're at in life, everyone is valuable. I don't care if you're a janitor. I don't care if you're, you know, making millions of dollars. Everyone has value.
Yeah. Yeah.
And the other thing,
one thing that I wanted to touch on.
Yeah. And well,
go ahead.
The other thing we're working on too is, you know, we do a live show twice a week. It's Aaron and Veronica Live. And that concept of that show, that what we wanted to put together was, you know, teaching some of these concepts, but also bringing on other people to be open and share their challenges, their experiences. We've been had a lot of great interviews over the last month, and it's been growing. So people are really loving that, because there's been a lot of emotion that gets shown on that show, because when people actually talk about these challenges and their fears, and they realize they're in a safe place, it's like we want people to know that you're not the only one that goes through this experience. And I think if we talk about that judgment, and if we're in a group environment, a supportive group, that, hey, you know what, this person's showing their emotion too, or hey, we're being open and sharing as well, that puts people in that comfort place to take that shield from up here and slowly start to put that down. So, you know what, it's okay for me to put this down, or even put that away. And that's what we wanted to create. And, you know, we do that, you know, twice a week on Tuesdays and Thursdays. And then that's free for everybody. It's a very great show. But that's what we're putting our work out there into the world, because we've had our own experiences. And by releasing and putting away those shields, now we can express what our true gifts and talents are. And right now we want to help millions of people that are going through this. And there are a lot of people that go through these issues.
Yeah, you know, something that I've really been focusing on with the show as well is to exemplify some of the experiences. And Veronica, you were talking about bullying, for instance. You know, my story is, you know, and this was something that I even shared with you guys, is that so when I first moved to the U.S., when my family immigrated here, of course I was different. There was a cultural difference, a language difference there. I was just an outsider kid, you know. And at a young age, is one thing that, you know, I was 13, 14 years old. So, you know, at that age, you know, a lot of kids kind of go through, you know, different phases, you know, from peer pressure and meeting new friends. And for me, you know, obviously being different and being bullied at that age, you know, kids always picked on. You know, I sat at the back of the bus because, you know, I despised the interaction. I didn't want to interact with kids because, you know, they would you know, point at me or, you know, laugh at me. And, you know, that's something that, you know, at an early age, just kind of looking back at that is, you know, I think I was afraid to share that with my parents. And then I didn't feel like, you know, I got the comfort that I was seeking, because they truly couldn't understand what that felt like at the time. And, you know, that can be a conscience burden, really, you know, something like that. Something that I've even heard a lot of similar stories. I mean, to the point where now bullying is actually a very serious offense. I don't know if back then, 20 plus years ago, it was. It didn't seem like it was at the time anyway. But nowadays, it's a very serious offense. And just looking back at that, and the reason I'm sharing this experience is, you know, bad experiences. And that, I think, taught me in a way is just that, you know, for one, is just how to be stronger, I think, but it never truly allowed me to release that tension that I had, as if maybe, you know, I had anger towards that. You know, I felt angry that I couldn't do anything at that time because, you know, at 13, 14 years old, what's the first reaction that, you know, a kid that's bullied has? You know, they want to get angry. You know, they want to fight back, or they want to take some kind of action, right?
Yeah.
And I was always that kid that was, I guess I was probably more patient back then than I am nowadays. Come to think of it, is that I really didn't take any action. I mean, that's the reality of it. Come to think of it, is I didn't really take any action. I mean, the only action was that I separated myself from the crowd, you know, by you know, alienating myself, which really wasn't, you know, a good approach anyway. But, you know, had this happened nowadays, I probably would have taken action and stood up, you know, and taken some kind of action, because, you know, that's very degrading, I think, not just, you know, on the kid's conscience, but on anybody, really, because you're different. And, you know, I think at an early age, one of the things that I'd heard is, oh, it's just kids being kids. I'm like, no, it's not kids being kids. it has a lot to do with, parental guidance also, and also behavior, and also, the way kids are taught, and the way that they're, the way they learn to socialize with other kids also. But, the burden that leaves on other kids, it's something that, as a parent now, that I look back and it's kind of like, I'll to make sure my son is not bullied and my daughter is not bullied, because that would probably be the biggest heartbreaker for me, because I know that I had to go through that, and I know the type of feeling. I mean, even just thinking about it now, I think there's some moments that kind of sent shivers down my spine. It made me wonder, oh my God, if I was to look back 20 years, would I have done something different? Would I stood up, or, would I defended myself, or, maybe gone up to the teacher and say, hey, that kid, was bullying me on the bus, or whatever, and I think the beauty about what you guys do is that you're able to extract those emotions so where people don't have to carry them their entire lives. Something that I've seen probably this more in family is just that, as some of my family members have gotten older, is just that it's amazing how you see certain life experiences kind of become more evident as they get older. They become more vocal about it. If they develop a higher, sense of expression, because as you get older, you become more mature, you become a lot more open and more willing to discuss things. And I'm just, to be honest with you, I've been surprised, probably baffled at some of the things that I've heard that otherwise I haven't heard my entire life from family, experiences they went through, and it just made me wonder when I came across you guys. It's like, oh my God, where you guys have been. I should have met you I don't know, 10, 20 years ago or something, and because I think what you do is not only helps entrepreneurs and business owners, it helps people.
Yeah.
And that's probably the most important thing, is just that seeking that help and realizing or helping people understand that it's okay to ask for help. It's okay to reach out and speak to you guys and be vulnerable and be able to extract these tensions and, emotional pains that have been maybe haunting you for years and years and years. There's people out there that literally will go their entire life, and I even remember that when I was really, really young, my grandmother, who, God bless her, passed away. I spent a valiant amount of time in my childhood with her, that, she would tell me stories. And some of these stories would really have the morale of, I wish I could, or I wish I should have, as if there was a sign of regret there, and not all the time regret in the sense that maybe I should have taken a different action, but when you don't know any better, or you're not around the right people specifically, and this is kind of one of the main points around this show, is just to bring people like you guys on that have value to infuse to other humans, not entrepreneurs, not business owners, people, humans, period. Because I think that human centricity and the ability to create relationships, people like you guys who have so much value to bring to other people on an emotion.
We lost you, Ivan.
Question that I wanted to ask you for a polar opposite. Are you still there?
Yeah, we're here.
We lost you for a little bit.
like a couple seconds. That's bad.
I'm not an out-of-body experience. That's what it was. We'll call it that.
Well, you make up a great point here for a second, because it's all about our perceptions, and again, we say entrepreneurs and business owners, but they are people. They are human beings. Everybody's a human being, and we also work on you think about this. A lot of the times we work with people, it's not what's going on right now. It's the stuff that's been carried on with them since they were children. And we can take it even back to people inside the womb, and just the environment that they're in growing up and the energy that they can feel. Because as a child, they are so open to feeling energy like Veronica is. It's just over time, they lose that ability because, maybe people don't allow them to develop that. That's why kids are so sensitive to energy. They can be around somebody that they just feel like a weird energy towards them. They feel shy. They don't want to be around this person. But these other people, they feel very comfortable with, because they can feel that. And so in that energy, we will help even sometimes children. We work with Veronica's daughter, who's 10 years old now, but we've been working with her since she's been 5, maybe even younger.
Yeah.
Because she goes through these experiences now. That's when the main experiences are happening, is that birth to like 12 years old. And that's what shapes our personalities, our behaviors. And so when we see her going through an emotional state, and sometimes it could be at school, and she'll be very emotional. In fact, she went through an issue the other day, and we helped her to actually release that emotion. And the best part about that is she won't carry that into her teenager. She won't carry that into her 20s and her 30s, into her 60s with her children. So she's very blessed, because we didn't get a chance to have this when we were her age, but we're fortunate enough to be able to share this with her and other children as well.
And I also teach her to be herself. Like, don't worry about what other people think about you. You be yourself, and you dress the way you want to dress, comb your hair the way you want to comb it. And I don't force her to wear pretty little dresses or anything. Because when I was a kid, my mom made me wear these fluffy dresses with ruffles, and I didn't like them. They were itchy, and I wanted to be comfortable. And you know, I was here. It was almost like being forced to put on this persona that you're not even comfortable with. And, you know, my mom, I felt like my parents were worried about what other people would think. But now, you know, going through that experience, I'm able to teach this to my daughter, like, just be who you want to be. And for picture day this year, she wanted to wear her hair like a cartoon character, and it was shaped like a triangle. So I made this thing for her hair, and I tied it up for her, and she had picture day with a triangle, as you know, for her hair. And she wasn't embarrassed. The kids actually thought it was cool. So but she's just very unique, and she has her own style, and I encourage that for her, because when she gets older, she's not going to care about what people think, and she's going to do what she wants to do what she loves. And that's what I encourage parents to, you know, with their kids, you know, allow them to be who they are. Otherwise, they're going to feel restricted, and they're going to fear that people are going to judge them.
You know, you bring up such a great point. I'm so glad that you did, because I want to talk about this topic, kids specifically, for a second. You know, growing up, to what you were saying is that it was so ironic when you mentioned that, is just that, you know, the way when I was growing up is I felt like I had to live this certain persona, because it was the way that my parents wanted me to. Like you said, dress a certain way, talk a different way, associate with certain kids. You know, when any kids, you know, were showing signs of being alternative, let's say, like they just had a different behavior, that immediately was like, no, you can't associate yourself with these kids, because, you know, they're maybe F students, or, you know, they hang out with the bad crowd, or whatever, right? So to your point is just that, and this is something I'm a big believer of, is just that I think expression is key for kids, especially in this day, because I look at it. I read an article recently on Business Insider about entrepreneurship, and like it really got me thinking, because, you know, even though my father is an entrepreneur, he's been an entrepreneur for about 14 years now. He runs his own business. And if I were to ask him or put him on the spot and say, hey, you're an entrepreneur, he would disagree, because he doesn't think of himself that way, literally. Of course, you can teach an old dog new tricks, right? But going back to kids for a second, is that that's how my parents grew up. So they felt that they had the responsibility to, and therefore not allow me to truly express myself. You know, and there were really times that I felt like there were so many limitations. Like I just couldn't be myself. And if I was, you know, I would get penalized for it. I would get yelled at, or I would get grounded. I mean, I remember one time, you know, as a kid, that I threw a rock in someone's house's window because I thought it was cool. Oh my God, for 2 weeks, I was grounded. Like I literally, it was school, back home, homework, eat dinner, bed. That was my routine for 2 weeks. Wow. And like the article that I read in Business Insider really got me thinking, because it talked about expression. It talked about the importance of how the leaders of tomorrow, and those are our kids, that is the next generation of leaders, presidents, business owners, that it's important to allow them to express themselves. Very important, where you're not posing limitations on them. And here's something you brought up that's really interesting, that I honestly didn't think about this until you brought it up, is just that honestly, before I probably met you guys, when my son starts getting older, and I know that he's going to go through cultural and language barrier issues, because the reality of things is he's the son of a second-generation immigrant, and kids will see that. As much as that I don't recognize it, they will, because I went through it also, right? So it makes me think that, how am I going to cope with that, right? That's where I think that's probably one of the biggest values that you guys can offer to parents, is that, look, if your kids are struggling, there's a lot of kids that are,
Yeah.
I mean, for instance, there's alternative schools that the education system puts kids there that otherwise are, let's call them irregular, that they don't fit within the regular system. It makes me wonder, I'm like, wait, let's look at history for a second. Anyone that has ever changed the world was technically irregular, right?
Yeah.
So what was their childhood like, right? What was their leadership like? So I think that's very scrutinized, but what you guys have to offer, and that's why I want to expand upon this, that it's extremely important for kids to teach kids, and this is something that you teach to your daughter, right? And this is something that got me thinking about my son and my unborn daughter, which, by the way, she's not allowed to date for probably as long as I'm alive. That's just the golden rule that we've established, okay? She's just not. I'll be that guy in Bad Boys, if you've seen the movie, right? I'll be like hunting that guy down and be like, dude, you better watch what you're doing, But
once she has relationship issues, we'll work on her, because it's like, why can't I attract the right relationship? Because I was afraid what Dad would save.
Ivan, just because I'm female, and I had a father that didn't want me dating certain people.
Yeah.
Be careful with putting those limitations on her, because she might rebel, and that's what I did. So if my father said something, I don't want to date this type of person. For me, I was wondering, well, why not? So I did the opposite of what my dad said. So be careful with that.
I'll take just a quick segue on that, and we'll get going, and I won't take too much time. Is, one thing we'll do as a family is it's being open together. In my family, everything was like kept secret. If something was going wrong, my parents, they always kind of kept it to themselves. Like, it's that sense of vulnerability. It's like, I don't want to show them what's going on, because I don't want them to worry or them to be scared. But then what happens if like, when you don't know about something, is we start to make it up in our own mind. Like, here's what I believe it to mean when this happens. But when we can be open with our children, with ourselves, and have open communication, this is what I'm feeling. And when we actually know the truth rather than speculation, then it's like all that tension starts to go away. And when we can say, hey, this is why we're doing this. This is why I'm feeling this way. This is what this means to me when you say this, when you do this. And for kids, that's why I'm mentioning this. They won't create this world in their mind. Like, this is how it is, rather than, okay, well, this is the reality of it, and this is why we're doing these things. This is why we're telling you not to do this. Give them an informed choice. So at least they're aware. And if they're more aware, then they can make good decisions for themselves, rather than, I think Dad just doesn't like me or won't let me do anything, rather than, here's a reason why I'm saying this, and you can choose what you want to do. But, just, I want to support you, and you let them, like, I can do this, and they can make their own decision. When it's their decision, it's like, okay, it's even better. Now they feel free.
Yeah.
So, I mean, that's a great point.
Well, you bring up a really good. You actually, I'm glad that you expanded upon this, because the eyes of parents, or the way kids might perceive it, is that they might see their parents as having a sense of uncertainty. Also. So when you were talking about, so for instance, here's an example. When I was growing up, we sort of had this tradition while my grandmother, was alive. My grandmother lived in a very small village of about 500 people, and she was a widow. My grandfather passed away when my mom was 3 years old, and my mom is now in her early 60s. So, my grandmother was a widow for her entire life. And so we had this tradition that, we would get the entire family around, so cousins and everyone, that would gather every Sunday at my grandmother's house. And we would have lunch together, we would bottle vegetables. And it was just like a traditional thing where it was all about unity. So like my parents, my aunt, my uncle, God bless him, he passed away from cancer several years ago, just completely unexpectedly. And that tradition about unity was important.
Mm-hmm.
Important is that I didn't think about this for a long period of time. And the reason I'm sharing this is because you made a very good point, Aaron, is that I think recognition and expression and unity is important with kids, because now when I reflect back to it, is I makes me think that, that was probably one of the last times that I think our entire family felt whole. Mm-hmm. To where, when my grandmother passed away and, my cousins kind of started getting older, everyone kind of moved on with their lives. We moved here, 3,000 plus miles away, across the pond. Life changed, right? So that's when things really changed. And it really made me wonder, and now I even look back at this, and it really makes me think that one day, if that house still stands, I want to be able to show that house to my son and my daughter and share those memories. Yeah. And share with them that, your dad used to, and my parents and your grandpa and your grandma, used to be very active and involved, because I think, for one, that brings up good memories. For one, is just that it opens up kids into the world of their parents. Because I know that something, I feel like even to this day, is just that with my parents, maybe they on them as well. Like, they want to be, kind of be like the front line, or act as the front line of defense, right? Because they're afraid that, they might get judged by their kids. So to what you were saying, Aaron, I think it's important to be expressive with your kids. And this is why I'm spending time on this topic, is because a lot of parents don't do that. They don't, when their kids, grow up and they turn into misfits, if that's what they call them, because, they never set a goal in life, or they don't have a focus, or they haven't found a purpose, or they feel like, they don't belong anywhere. Well, I think it's because, maybe parents just didn't spend enough time, dedicating time to them to understand that, it's okay to talk, to be transparent. Yeah. I think transparency is big, to have that kind of connection. And the fact that you're doing this with your daughter is amazing. I mean, so what has been your daughter's, response to that? Like, the fact that you have that kind of relationship, because I'm sure that she talks about it at school with their kids. And it's like, I have a really good relationship with my mom. So has she shared any of that with you and what that feels like?
Well, sometimes at school she feels like she's the weird one, because, because she's so open and she's just herself, and she doesn't allow other people's judgment to affect her. So, kids look at her like she's weird, but she's just being herself. She's doing what she wants to do. And, even, there's even teachers at school that, she's had an experience where they called her a name. It was a teacher, I think it was during lunchtime.
It's like one of those yard duties when you're in elementary.
Yeah, and she was eating some sausages, and she heard the teachers call her sausage girl. So she took that very personal, for coming from a teacher, someone you're supposed to look up to. And she told me about it, and I just told her, I go, don't worry about what other people say to you, because there's always going to be someone that's will be name calling, regardless if it's a teacher. You just do your own thing and don't worry about what kids think. But I encourage her to do what she loves, because she loves drawing, she loves art, and she's all.
You're still there? I think.
Yeah.
Out of body experience here.
We're here.
We're here. Can you hear us?
Nope. Get a second.
Are you still there?
Yeah, I'm still here. I think we're having an out of body experience again.
Well, we're here. So, I was saying, I encourage her to be who she wants to be, to do what she loves, and do it for the right reasons. Like, if you're going to do something, do it because you love it, not because of the money or because someone is telling you to do it. Do it from your heart. Yeah. And that's what she's doing now. She's constantly drawing, and I encourage her to just, be who she is.
Yeah, to be yourself. That's very important in an early age, because I think that, like you were saying, that's a time that, your personality and character starts building up, really, and that can have a huge correlation to later in life. In the way that specifically you feel inside, that whether or not you have support. And I think that one of the things that maybe she's extracting from this is the immense amount of support that you give her, by allowing her to be open also, and maybe even being vulnerable at times, because, it's okay to discuss those kinds of things. And most kids are not as open, I think. And, not to really, hone in on just kids specifically, but I think fundamentally what we're talking about is emotion specifically, which can create a lot of tension, later in life. That is something that I know in growing up that I've experienced. Even when I stepped into entrepreneurship, it was very disappointing, because I felt like I didn't have any support, any encouragement, especially with, and I shared this with you guys, is I was married once. This is my second marriage. My first marriage just felt like, every day I would get up and it was like a discouragement, and what do you think that does to a person's conscience? I don't care if you're 12 years old or you're 40 years old, you're still a human being, right? Yep. It's a burden on your conscience. So when you don't have that support, when you feel like, the world thinks that you're a failure, it has a huge impact on anything you do. And that's why it's so important, to have you guys. I'm so happy to have met you guys, first and foremost, because you know how to extract that tension and that bad energy, and to let it go into the world, because nobody, no human being, I don't even, honestly, after going through this exercise with you guys, I probably even wouldn't wish it on my worst enemy to have those kinds of feelings, to where they're so bottled inside them, to where, you can't move one step without doubting yourself, because that is what happens later in life, literally. And just, the story that I shared with you with my family is that I think one thing that it really kind of created for me is that maybe there wasn't a sense of unity anymore, especially after my grandmother passed away. I felt like she was sort of the glue to the puzzle, the glue to everything. She was the one that would really enforce that, every week on a Sunday, we would all spend time together, would all have lunch together, because it was important to have that sense of unity and family also. So, and after her passing, I feel like everyone just kind of went about their lives, and that, that created kind of a hole in my heart, in a sense, because that one feeling, that emotion that I had every time I would experience that always made my heart warm. And I think by her passing, it was like there was a part of me that was missing, and it really got me thinking, after going through the exercise with you guys, that there were memories and flashbacks that really started coming through, and really kind of started making me really realizing, oh my God, like I've had all this tension, with all these memories and flashbacks, and there were good memories, but I think that I had a strong sense of sadness there, and I still do. And I feel like that is, has a correlation to anything that I do, especially with my business, now being a father, being a husband also, it really, really makes me think sometimes is how those emotions, and the spiritual aspect of this, which we really haven't talked a lot of, is, has an impact on my life. And it really does, because you were talking about your daughter, for instance, is that it's important to have that sense of expression. I don't think I had that sense of expression, and that's where you can build up a lot of emotional burdens also. Let's talk about the spiritual aspect. So when you guys, we talk so much about, emotions, and I want to spend a little bit of time talking about the spiritual aspect of it. So when people come to you, obviously you do the emotional and the spiritual, but how do you approach the spiritual aspect of this? I mean, how do you work with, different people that might be seeking, spirituality, they want to find God maybe, or, they've had God in their life. Like, I was very religious at an early age, and I wasn't for a vast majority of my life. And I feel like because my family had a huge contributing factor to that, they just weren't as spiritual, But to be honest with you, it was just that over the last probably 4 or 5 years, I feel like God has played such a huge part of my life that it's like I feel like, I left them down the street for a long period of time. Now it's like, God, I'm sorry that I unintentionally deserted you, type of thing. So how do you guys work with people who, are seeking spirituality? What are some things that you share with them, to help them understand that, the spiritual aspect is a huge part as a human being? Can you share a little bit about that?
Well, we've worked with several people. We're getting it.
Get a little feedback here.
Oh.
It's like an echo. Okay. So we've worked with several people that have issues with God because they feel that God made them go through this bad experience in their life and they blame it on God. But it's not really about that. God, God doesn't want you to suffer, but it's what we create in our own heads that you attract certain situations into your life. And it's also your perception of things, because just because it looks a certain way doesn't mean it is that way. So, so we do work on people and we figure out what is the reason on why you have an issue with God, and we'll that emotion. And for me, I was raised Catholic when I was young, put us in catechism, and my grandmother went to church. I think she still does almost every single day, but I noticed there was what was being taught in church and her attitude towards other people and humans, it didn't match up. So I was thinking, well, how can this woman that goes to church every single day treat others that in a bad way? So in my head, I was like, I don't like, this, it was like being a hypocrite. So I told my mom I didn't want to go to catechism no more because I wasn't learning anything. So I was surprised, but she did listen to me and took all of us out, because she had 4 kids. So I still believed in God, and I would pray every night. And as a kid, I always prayed for happiness. I just want to be happy, because there was a lot of things going on as a child. My dad was abusive to my mom, to us, physically and verbally. So I wasn't happy, and I was depressed. And there was times that I didn't want to be in this world. And then also feeling all the emotions from my mom, my sisters, everyone in the household going through all this. It was way too overwhelming. And I did turn to God, and, I would always say, I just want to be happy. And, as I got older, things did mellow out. And, but it's not blaming God for what has happened to you. It's taking responsibility for everything that has happened to you, and look at the good at what happened. So even though the situation was bad, what was the good, from it? So like how you said you lost your grandmother, even though it of course it hurts, but what the good thing was that she taught you about unity. So now you can teach that to your child and your kids, your wife, and they will be, like, oh, we have this unity within our family now. So that's the beautiful thing about your grandmother, is that she taught that to you.
Yeah.
One quick little piece of that with the spirituality concept when we work with people. And Veronica, you mentioned that is, when people grow up in these different belief systems and faiths, it's what was that person's experience growing up? And some people, they really grasp on, when you're a child, you'll believe, your subconscious mind believes whatever's thrown at it. And if it was a negative experience, then they use that experience as, religion or whatever your faith is. Some people turn away from it, never want to go back, and they'll look at and they get triggered anytime that subject comes up. That's why you always hear in conversations, the 2 things you don't ever want to talk about is politics and religion, because it can bring up so much emotion. That's why it's an emotional tie to it. So it's very powerful. But whatever it is, we always let people know, it's like, that doesn't matter what you believe, as long as it's coming from a place of love and you're doing good in the world. And if there's a challenge with that, it's something because of maybe an experience or an emotion that's showing up, that's being triggered, that has to be released. And to understand that and where it comes from, most of the time we find that it's never God. It's the experience with how people perceive God and what they tell you about God that becomes your issue. And so that's been our experience. And I wasn't a spiritual person at all growing up. In fact, my spirituality journey really started maybe 2 years ago. And Veronica's the one that brought that up in me, because it's like I wanted to believe, like, that was my experience, and I pushed that away because of how people were so pushy with it and all the emotion. I saw everything that it can do. It can bring a lot of good, but it can also bring a lot of hate. And we see that in the world. It's been going on for centuries. But I think when you really have faith and belief, that's where it really comes out. Go ahead.
Well, the reason I wanted to touch upon the spirituality is I also want to share a story with you guys. And this is something that's very important to me. I think should be very important to a lot of people. Also, the spiritual aspect is growing up is just that was very religious. It was mainly my grandmother. I grew up Christian Orthodox, which is just an older form of Christianity. Coming from a country that, I was starting in 896, having I was going to churches that were like 16th century architecture, like old school, like pastors. So it was like great to have that experience as a child. But I think that my grandmother was sort of the one that was sort of enforcing that because she believed that was an important factor of it. And then growing up, I think the spiritual aspect faded. I don't know if it's because, moved on with life and, she was really the only person. I mean, my parents still practice it, but it's mainly just around the holidays, right?
Yeah.
To fast forward to, 4 years ago. So me and my wife were wanting to start a family, right? And we tried to naturally conceive multiple times, and we were just unsuccessful at that point. And so we went to see a world-renowned doctor here in St. Louis by the name of Dr. Silber, who specializes in vitro fertilization. Mm-hmm. And I had no idea that infertility, for one, was such a big problem. For instance, over 5 million women in the U.S. alone struggle with infertility. And IVF is now becoming so common because mainly couples are awaiting a later part in their life to start a family. So, 3 or 4 years ago, it's just that, we both realized, that for one, I think we both unintentionally deserted God because God was, in my life, in my wife's life also. And, we prayed literally. I mean, that was the only hope that we felt like we had is we prayed and we prayed. And literally we said, God, is this what? So my wife was diagnosed with an ovarian cancer and was basically told they couldn't naturally conceive. And the only option was going to be in vitro fertilization. And so we're going through this experience and, we turned to God and said, God, is this really what you have in life for us? Because at that point I felt like after my divorce, I felt like, the world was about to crumble. I just, had lost hope. I was dissatisfied. I was angry at myself. I felt like I did something wrong. I didn't want to be around family. I didn't want to be around friends, and family didn't understand that. So there were a lot of things that were happening. So when we found that out, Dr. Silber basically said, well, the only way you can conceive is through IVF. And here's what it's going to cost. It's going to cost $15,000 to do that. I'm sitting here and I'm going like, God, really? Is this there was no way for me to come up with that money, honestly. I have no idea. I'm sitting there in this room and I'm like, so $15,000 determines whether or not I will actually have a family. That's how I was processing this. Yeah. And I got to think about God, is this really what you have in store for me? And I think this is where God really helped me, is this that was right around the time that I was getting really started with my business. And I feel like the next day, just God magically somehow reworked my life to where that money showed up. Yep. Literally, it just showed up. And it was, I think God gave me a runway that I could follow to find that. So what basically happened, and during the course of this, is we publicized all of it online. And, we had a lot of repercussions from family, from my wife's family, who's very religious also, and my family. And, we just kept pushing forward. I mean, this was a brand new experience for us. So that's how my now 22-month-old Hudson was born, is we were able to go through this in vitro fertilization process. Now, we didn't want our son to be the only child. Mm-hmm. So we wanted another child. So keep in mind at this point as we are praying and we're like, God, we are sorry we have deserted you. And God has become a bigger part of our lives ever since then. So 3 or 4 years now, like I mentioned earlier on. And I was just like, God, give me another chance. Give me another chance. I want to have another child. I don't want Hudson to be the only child. And so during the course of this, we're publicizing this online and we're telling people, and oh my God, I had no idea how judgmental people can be because, like you said, Aaron, religion, because of perception, because of the way that they were raised. And this was another round of $15,000. Keep in mind, at this point, I'm spending $30,000 out of pocket. Okay, 30 grand. Like, I don't know anybody in my network who can, I don't care if you make six figures to come up with that kind of money, honestly. But it somehow happened. It somehow happened. Like, to this day, honestly, I tell my wife, I'm like, you know what? It was God. God literally helped us find a plan to make this happen. And this is why we're expecting in June our daughter, who still remains nameless, by the way, because me and my wife are arguing on names, and I'm one of those that's so peculiar about names, you know. But the point being is just that I think spirituality and the emotional aspect is such a huge part of anyone's life. And for me personally, I think God had a very predominant role in that. And what's amazing about this is that it had probably been, I would say, 15, maybe close to 20 years since I had really felt so close to God, honestly. And the ability, you know, I'm thankful for my wife who unconditionally supports me and anything I do. I've probably put her through hell, honestly, but she still bears with me. She still supports me unconditionally. And when you go all in on believing that God is there to help guide you, that He'll support you, but He won't do it for you. Mm-hmm. That's the difference. And that's where I think, Veronica, you were saying is that a lot of people misconstrue the fact that they feel like God is going to do something for them. No, God doesn't owe you anything. Yeah. God is there to support you in your mission.
Yeah, you still have to take action.
Exactly. You have to put in the action, you know, and I'm going to be honest with you as, you know, just last year, I'm going through this experience twice, which, you know, it was a huge emotional, huge physical, you know, roller coaster on my wife specifically because, oh my God, like going through this twice. I'm even thinking about it that one day if I write a book, I will talk explicitly about the emotional experience that a woman goes through this. Like literally, I bow down to my wife on this. Like I had no idea that she would be able to sustain this twice. And look, we're both 37. You know, I'm about to be 38 in, oh my God, 3 days. And she's going to be 38 in a couple of months as well. So we're not necessarily young also. So, you know, it was a turmoil going through this exercise. But look, God was there. You know, God looked over us and supported us unconditionally, regardless of what anybody thought. Mm-hmm. And honestly, I have no idea how all this happened, but it did. You know, there's that higher power. There's God. And I think to your point, Aaron, is just that I think where this gets so political is just that a lot of people start talking about different religions and different gods and so on and so forth. And they try to put blame on that as if their God, you know, didn't do something that they wanted them to do, as if like they created expectations. And it's not about that. Mm-hmm. You know, it's not about that. And that's why it's so important. This is why I'm a huge believer of what you guys do, is because you need to be able to enforce that upon people and understand that God does not owe you anything. If anything, God died on the cross so humanity could live. And that's probably one of the biggest sacrifices that anybody could do. So the reason I'm sharing this is just that I think between the emotional and the spiritual aspect, and the reason I shared the story is because I think a lot of people are afraid. You know, a lot of people have spiritual challenges. A lot of people have emotional challenges. But there's only a small portion of people who actually are willing to take action. And you got to take action. I mean, as a guy who's been a marketer for a long period of time, I see this bullshit every day on social media. Excuse my French. Is that a lot of people want to create the sort of empathy that like someone's going to give them because they're unwilling to take the action to do something. And you have to take the action. I mean, we have a mutual friend, Josh, who I highly, highly respect. I mean, I think this guy has gone through hell and back, but that didn't stop him. You know, he's a prime example, prime advocate that anybody can do anything they want to as long as they set their mind to it. They embrace the emotional and the spiritual aspect, and you just got to do it. Nobody's going to do it for you.
Exactly.
Yeah. So, you know, that's an important thing that I wanted to share with you guys. So I know we've been jamming for about an hour now at this point, which like actually a little bit over an hour, which I absolutely enjoyed the conversation. So in closing, let's talk a little bit about if people want to reach out to you for emotional, spiritual healing, you know, what's the best way to reach you? Where can they find you?
You know, if they want to reach out to us, they can reach us here on Facebook at, or you can message us at Clear Connect. That's how you find us. Connect is spelled KINECT, or they can message Veronica and myself directly. Or you can visit our website if you want to learn more about what we do and who we are. You can go to clearconnect.com. Again, Connect is spelled KINECT. We're going to be vamping things up as we go. We're constantly growing. We're expanding. And it's going so fast. Just keep up with us. And, we're going to do some great things in this world. We got a new program that's coming out. And it's about how to manifest a life you truly desire based on your mindset and using these emotional and spiritual principles. So we want you guys to stay tuned for that one because we're really excited. We're in the studio right now recording. But if you guys want to just reach out to us, if you have any questions, if there's any way we can support you, we're here for you.
Yeah, thank you so much for having us, Ivan.
Yeah, absolutely. The pleasure was all mine. Thank you guys again. I look forward to staying in touch. Thank you so much. And sharing also how people, can connect with you because I think that's important to reach out. So I hope you guys have a blessed day, the rest of your day. Thank you so much. And I look forward to staying in touch in the social space.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Ivan.
Have a good day.